My corner of the internet where I get to talk about my love for knitting. It's been a little while, and by a little while I probably mean like a little over a month since I filmed my my last podcast, which was back in January, I believe. But there's just been a lot that's been happening over the last couple of months. Firstly, I found some local knitting girls here that I've just become really fast friends with, and a lot of my time during the week is spent just getting to be around them, knit with them. So I feel like that's part of the reason, and it's also the reason why maybe I just haven't felt inclined to make more content for YouTube, just because I've been so focused on developing those relationships. And also I have just been very busy apart from knitting, that finding a day where I can sit down and film long form is just a little more difficult for me, especially if you've been here before. You know that the camera that I film on loves to get overheated very easily. And so how I'm going to combat that, because I want to make a knitting podcast, I'm going to basically probably just film what I can before the camera gets overheated, and it's either when it cools down I'll resume filming, or I'll just resume filming on another day. So if you see some angle changes, some light changes, some outfit changes, hairstyle changes, that's what's going on. If you hear outside noises, I have the window open because here in Atlanta it is 70 degrees. It went from 20 degrees to hot as heck. I know I'm saying that wearing a sweater, which by the way I did not knit, but yeah, so if you hear some cars driving by, that's what. I just have the window open because it's so nice to finally get some warm spring air in. Okay, so I have a couple of finished objects. I'll try to get through what I can before the camera decides that you gotta cut it off. But I'm gonna go in chronological order. If you can see at the top of my pile, I have my Hanni cardigan, which I do believe was a whip in my last podcast. So this is the Hanni cardigan by Knitters and Friends. I used Purl Soho's line weight held double with a strand of their Tussock Mohair. I don't remember the colors exactly, so I'll leave those in the description or somewhere on the screen. But yes, this is her, absolutely finished. I'm so pleased with the final product. I have these delicious iridescent cream buttons. They remind me very much of candy. And so yeah, let's talk a little bit about it. So I knit the size medium, and realistically my size would probably be a small, but I am very quickly realizing that I have quite a tight gauge. I don't always gauge swatch. That's led me to a couple of mishaps previously, but I did do a gauge swatch for this, and I realized I think I was off by maybe 2 or 3 stitches, which kind of adds up. And so I wanted a certain amount of positive ease. I like my hand knits to be very oversized. I really don't like negative ease or anything like that, so the more positive ease the better. So I decided to do a size medium, and I do not regret that decision at all. I really didn't do any modifications. I even think that I did the same amount of decreases as what the pattern called for, which is weird because if you've watched my previous podcast or have seen me work on a project vlog before, you know that I usually omit decreases on the sleeves because I just love a large billowy sleeve. And so yeah, I was a little shocked at myself that I did the decreases, but I'm really glad that I did. I think it worked out in the end. And this was my first time doing a double knit button band, and let me tell you, I'm a convert. If I have the opportunity to on another cardigan in the future, which I am working on a cardigan currently, so we'll talk about them in the whip section, you better believe that I will be doing a double knit button band. The finish is so clean. I was so proud of myself. I was like, this looks professional. And then the folded down collar, I mean, they really did such a great job with the construction, the design, the pattern writing. And I loved this cardigan so much that I convinced 2 other knitting girls in my group that they need it. So one girl is currently working on hers, and I think today, as of today, another one just cast hers on. So I'm gonna have a bunch of Hanni buddies. But yeah, that's my Hanni cardigan. I really don't have much to say about that. All I am gonna say, I'm just gonna like brag on Purl Soho. This is the softest, most scrumdiddlyumptious fabric that I have ever knit, and it's so good, in fact, that one of the girls that I convinced to do the Hanni cardigan is basically doing the same yarn combination where she's holding 2 of the line weight strands, but she's using an Isager silk mohair with it. And yeah, I have nothing else to say except you should try this combination if you have a DK weight pattern coming up, because it's probably one of my favorite yarn combinations that I've ever worked with. So yeah, let's move on to the next thing. I had a couple of lingering whips from my stash busting month that I had, which was December 2025. And so what I got done first was this pair of mittens. These are the Rosie mitts by Lenit. And I had used stash Knitting for Olive Heavy Merino Pearl Gray, as well as stash Berroco Vintage in Black Cherry. And I think the pattern actually calls for DK weight, but I had kind of a mishap knitting the Blomster hat by Kaisa Varela Fredrickson, where I used the gauge, and this is on me because I should have gauge swatched, but lesson learned. But basically I had knit the Blomster hat and then it can't go over my head. So then I got scared. And so then when I saw that this pattern called for DK weight, I was like, okay, let me do something else. So I decided to use worsted weight, and it worked out perfectly. I think that these mittens are just so darling and they're so comfortable. And I got to use up some of the scrap yarn in my stash. And so these are just perfect. Of course, it's hot as heck here now, so there ain't no way I can wear these. I probably got like a week of reasonable winter weather that I got to wear this. But yeah, no modifications. I knit small circumference things like socks and mittens using magic loop. I know that that is such a turnoff for some people, but I've tried small circulars. My hands just cramp up, and it may be the way I'm holding the needles. Maybe I need to modify that, but I'm just so much more comfortable doing magic loop, and I don't have the laddering on the sides that I think some people do. And then a friend of mine recently introduced me to the concept of the traveling loop, and I was like, what is this sorcery? And I watched her do it and I was just like, I love that for you, but I think I'm gonna stick to magic loop again. And DP ends, that's witchcraft. Like the crowding of the sticks, and the clicking, I think that kind of stresses me out a little bit. Too many things to manage. So I will be sticking to magic loop. I love it, it works for me. And that's also the beauty of knitting, is that there are so many ways one person can attempt a single technique. Okay, so yeah, that was a lingering whip that I had. I'm genuinely so tickled. My camera got through 2 finished objects before it decided to cut me off. I hope y'all are in it for the long haul, because it's gonna take a second for me to be able to film everything. Because I just want to be able to like talk about everything and give it the attention it deserves, but okay, let's do this. So the next project that I have was another stash busting project, which is my Neck Warmer 35 by Thea Vesterby. Yeah, I just wanted an easy winter accessory, and I felt like I was seeing a lot of people make one. And I remember, I think it was Study Knits, she was sharing some of the winter accessories that she had knit, and I saw this beautiful like cable work, which I'd not seen this exact cable work before, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna have to make that. So from my stash, I use blue Sky Fibers Woolstok in the colorway Driftwood. That was a very popular yarn choice for me last year, and I just held it with actually some random mohair that I had in my stash. I think both of them were Isager, but I don't think they were the exact same colorway. Like one matched this exactly, and then another one I think was actually white. So I think it looks great. I mean, you cannot tell, and that's probably because of the silk core, but yes, it's really pretty. I did make a modification, so, and I think I talked about it in my last podcast, but basically for the like turtleneck portion, I do not like turtlenecks. Like I don't like things hugging my neck per se. It just makes me feel really constricted. So I ended up kind of going for somewhat of like a funnel cowl neck fit, and ended up picking, I think, maybe 20 plus more stitches than what the pattern instructed for. And I will say this keeps you very, very warm. I think I wore it on top of like one of my cashmere pullovers that I have, and then I just layered it with this, and I was roasty toasty for sure. So I highly recommend, and another great stash busting project. I wish like I would have like been a very diligent person and done how many grams it took to make these stash busting projects, because I'm sure that would have been helpful to someone who was like, oh, I want to do that too, but how many grams did you use? So yeah, I'm really sorry. I do know for the Rosie mittens by Lynette, I used 1 ball of knitting for olive, heavy merino and Purl, right? And less than 25 grams of the Berroco vintage black cherry. Does that help? Okay, but I don't know exactly what I used here, so I'm sorry. That was bad YouTuber on my part. Okay, I would like to get into these, but I do have a feeling my camera's about to cut me off, but I'll give you some sneak peeks. Sneak peek 1, and I'll make sure I can show you guys these cutie buttons, and then sneak peek 2. Okay, my camera is about to give out, but I will see you tomorrow. I'm losing light. Bye. Okay, it is the next day. I'm back. I am actually really glad I'm doing this in parts, because before I went to bed last night, I was like, oh wait, I forgot that I had a pair of pants that I wanted to show you, and forgot to put into the list like one of the whips that I had. So I'm really glad I'm doing this in parts. The first thing I'm going to show you, I had mentioned in my last podcast this book, which is Threads by Madeleine Kemsley, and basically it is a way for people to hand embroider and enhance their own clothing through, you know, stitches. And I thought, okay, this could be so useful for me, because I know that there are things in my wardrobe that I just don't gravitate towards, because I don't know if they're lackluster, or they're just not, they don't bring enough joy for me to wear. And so I took a good look at my wardrobe to choose who my first victim would be, and it was this pair of pants. These are a pair of like thrifted cargo pants that I've had. I wore them once when I went to go visit my husband's family in Ireland, and then since then they've literally just sat in the closet. These are gorgeous. Let me see if I can show you some of the motifs. And I'll also try to include maybe the video that I had taken to show these pants off a little bit more, trying them on. So yeah, these turned out so well, and I can very confidently say that I wear these all the time, because the threads that I chose were all colors of things that were already in my wardrobe that I tended to wear a lot. So I was able to just mix and match whatever garment I wanted to with this. And I would say probably in total it took me about a week to hand stitch all of the motifs that you see here on the pants. So the beautiful thing about this book is that it has like a QR code that you can scan, and it will link you to a PDF or a website with all of the PDFs of all the designs, because you can then purchase this like adhesive sticky paper that you can put in your printer at home. It'll print the design onto it, and all you have to do is cut out the design and like literally sticker it to wherever you want to hand stitch the design onto the clothing piece that you've chosen. And then yeah, you stitch over it, and then all you do is run it under some cold water and the sticky adhesive paper completely disappears. And yeah, I think that and a set of embroidery hoops are the only things that I had purchased to complete this project, because I used to needlepoint before I got obsessed with knitting. And so I had a lot of like wool and silk thread in my stash already. So I'm just so pleased with how these turned out. I ended up switching out this button here. It was just a regular, like a button that matched the color of the pants, and I switched it out for a mother of pearl shelf button. And then for kind of continuity's sake, I added these small matching buttons onto those pocket flaps there. And yeah, I love it. And also the reason I stitched on Tweety, that's the nickname that my husband gave me. So my golf bag has like a Tweety bird head cover, and my mother-in-law got me a Tweety bird ornament. But yeah, he calls me Tweety, and that's why that's on my pants, and I thought that was a bit cheeky to add onto that back pocket there. But yeah, those are my pants, and I highly recommend, if there is something in your wardrobe that you feel is lackluster, or you think just needs a piece of uniqueness that it would get you to wear it more because you're so proud of it, I highly recommend this book. And I highly recommend hand embroider your own clothes. I am very much thinking, what am I gonna hand embroider next? Because the spring summer is coming up. And so I know there are a couple of like linen dresses that I wanna sew, and that would be really cute, or maybe some tops. But yeah, my mind's already going. Oh, and by the way, I'm wearing my Hanni cardigan, which I showed in the last clip, so. Okay. Let's talk about this next thing, and this is a Sézane-inspired garment. This is my first ever self-drafted hand knit. I'm extremely proud of this. So Sézane is a French fashion brand. I believe they were kind of mostly in Paris, and then they've become very popular and now have disseminated kind of worldwide. We have a store here in Atlanta that recently opened, and so when my friend and I went for a walk, we popped in. And I think like any knitter, whenever you walk into a store and you see something knit, you're like, I could make that myself. We have Sézane at home. And I saw this sleeveless pullover, and I thought, one, I love that lilac, and two, I could definitely make that. So I went home, immediately went on Wool & Co.'s website, started trying to search for that perfect lilac yarn, and ended up choosing Cascade Pacific Chunky in the colorway Lavender Herb. And I'll walk you through some of the self-drafting process, but I know that on Instagram and TikTok, some people have reached out and they're like, I would love to see your notes on how you self-drafted this, in probably hopes that they can replicate it themselves. And trust, I will put those out. I have literally just not had the time to dedicate like any time to sit down, go to my computer. I took very diligent notes, but I want to make sure to format them in a more readable PDF, and maybe, I don't know, add some notes on maybe how to modify it to your own size dimensions. So, okay, let's talk about it. So I basically took the knitting needle suggestion from the yarn label, as well as the gauge suggestion, and knit myself a gauge swatch. And then from there, I took whatever I got, the measurements, and then translated it to kind of the size measurements of my body. So the first thing I started with was, what is the width across my shoulders, and then knit how many stitches. You'll see in the sleeveless pullover on that armhole, it's not a ribbed edge, it's more of an edge stitch. And thankfully I just worked the Neck Warmer 35 by Thea Vesterby, and I was like, okay, so I'll just put rib stitches on either end, and then I'll create an edge stitch, which is, your first stitch of every row, you're gonna slip the yarn in front for the first stitch, work the row as it is, and then on your last stitch, regardless of whether it's a wrong side or right side, you're just gonna knit it. So I did that, and I would say that edge is pretty clean. I'm really happy because that means I didn't have to go back and pick up stitches for the armhole. Also, something that I've done, I think you could probably use the same needle to do the rib stitches as you do for the body, but for me it's just not as clean. So what I do whenever I have a pattern that calls for that is I'll take a set of DP ends that are about 2 sizes smaller. So I think for this was like a US 10.5 needle, and then I ended up using a US 8 needle on my rib stitches, DPN needle. And so I would have a DPN needle here, a DPN needle on this set of rib stitches. And as I worked the rest of the body in my regular needle, which was the US 10.5, I just let those rib stitches rest on the size 8 DPNs. So I think that led to a very just clean finish where you don't even know that it is a rib stitch. Okay, sorry, my camera cut me off. Where was I? I was talking about the DPNs. Yeah, so that's what I did there. And then I got to the point, so I put my like back panel, the stitches on barber cord while I was working my front. And I got to a point where I was done with the front. I had done my like increases, and I thought, should I connect the back and the front and dupe the Sézane sleeveless pullover as I saw it, or do I want to go a different direction? And I don't know what possessed me, I went a different direction, and I love it. I'm really happy I did. So I basically worked the front and back panel separately, and then on the front panel I added buttonholes so that I could do a button closure to attach the front and the back. And these buttons are the Floral Darlings buttons from Holland Hoof. Such a treat to purchase. And these are the pink and cream, and I just love, well, one, they're ceramic, and then just the speckling in it is just super gorgeous. I'm really happy with that. And then I did, I don't know, 3 inches of 1x1 rib, and then I decided on what I would do for the collar. And at this point I was still on the fence. Did I want to do a normal like folded down crew neck collar, or did I want to do something a bit wider? And I ended up doing a funnel neck. Like I mentioned before, I do not like turtlenecks, but I wanted something kind of wide. So yeah, that's what I ended up doing, and I'm really happy, and it's just perfectly squishy. The yarn is great, but I will say, when I put out like whatever my notes are, I would like to maybe knit per my notes another version of this that probably utilizes more natural fibers. This is superwash wool plus acrylic, so probably not the best natural fiber choice, but I would like to remake this in probably like 100% merino wool alpaca situation, and I think that'd be really great. And then I'd probably just do a crew neck. I do love this neckline, but I would also probably do a regular crew neck just to have both versions in my closet. But I am very happy with this. I will put up some videos from my TikTok, Instagram of how I styled it initially to kind of show it off. But yeah, that is my Sézane-Inspired Pullover. Okay, I have one more finished object, and this one was kind of a doozy. Let me go ahead and preface that when I finish the sweater, okay, I love this sweater. It's an amazing sweater. It's an amazing pattern. I would 100% knit it again. It did cause a knitting identity for me. So I think in my first year and some months now of knitting, I was figuring out what I liked as a knitter. I kept gravitating towards more fun colors, and that's why my first year and so of knitting, I had a lot of like pinks and purples and just really interesting colors in my hand knit collection. And as you know, I'm wearing a bright green Hanni cardigan. Love this green. I think that primary colors are neutral, and I think of course like your tans, beiges, navies, blacks, blues, grays, etc. Those also fall along the side, like along the neutral color path. But I felt that when I was looking at my hand knits recently and my ready-made wear that I have in my closet, I realized I have some pretty significant gaps in that when I initially picked up knitting, one, I wanted like a really wholesome hobby, but I also wanted a hobby that was gonna provide me with everyday kind of basics or things that I would almost wear every single week, every single day. And when I look at my hand knit collection, I just don't have that. I have a bunch of like standalone statement pieces, but I don't have I have like one or two things that fall along the lines of being neutral, but then the rest of them are just very amazing, interesting hand knit pieces instead of just your basics. So I knit this sweater, and then I kind of went through the identity crisis of like, oh my gosh, I don't wear my hand knits enough. What do I do? And I'm so thankful I have my knitting girls here, because like immediately I was in the group message and they were like, you just need to knit in neutrals for the next few garments to just ground yourself. And this is coming from like, the girls in my group have very fun color choices. So for them to be like, I think that you need to do this, I was like, okay, that's what I'm gonna do. So let me show you the sweater first, which I already showed you the sneak peek. This pattern is the Dorothea yoke sweater by Marianne Nerbo. I think she had partnered with Copenhagen Fibers and Hobie. This is a free pattern. There's like a whole collection from this designer on Hobie that you can download for free. And I love the pattern. The pattern was super easy to follow. Really, I mean, it wasn't too flowery in language, just really simple. And I think I ended up with a perfect end product. I did a size 4XL, and I know you're like, that's insane, but let me tell you why I did that. So when I initially set on knitting my first circular yoke pattern, I chose the Stitches pattern by Kudo Bukika. Gorgeous pattern, did not gauge swatch. I knit a size large thinking everything was gonna be fine, and when I tried it on, it was teeny tiny. I was like, oh my god, what have I done? And so I ended up frogging the entire thing. And then I talked to my friends, and they were like, I don't know if you just knit a size larger, I don't know if you abandoned this dream, Camille. And let me show you the yarn that I had chosen initially for that sweater. So this is the Noro Akari Fukigawa, and then this is Cascade 220 and Savannah Heather, and this is the Peace Fleece DK in Mourning Dove. I think it's Fukugawa. Yeah. Anyway, these three colors, in addition to Lion Brand Fisherman Wool in Oatmeal, held with Knitting for Olive, Soft Silk Mohair, and Marzipan, was going to make up my Stitches sweater by Kudo Bukika. And so then I was like, okay, I'm gonna knit the next size up, or the next two sizes up. I knit that, and then all of a sudden I just was not enjoying knitting the pattern. And there's nothing wrong with the pattern, let me just go ahead and put that out there. But I just wasn't enjoying it, and I knew that whatever I ended up with, like, I wasn't gonna wear. And so that went against everything that I believe in knitwear, that if you're gonna take 60 plus hours to make something, you better wear it. And so yeah, I abandoned that dream, and I was up at night after frogging my sweater twice, and I was like, what do I do? And I found this pattern on Pinterest, and yeah, I went to my local yarn store the next day and chose out yarn. The base is the same. This is still Lion Brand Fisherman Wool with the Knitting for Olive, Soft Silk Mohair, Marzipan. This color here is still the Peace Fleece DK and Mourning Dove, and I'm gonna try to get some like close-ups of this yarn, because I don't think like holding it afar is doing it justice. There are these gorgeous like purple, pink, mauve-y flecks in it, so it like comes off looking almost like a purpley brown, but when you like look at it up close, there's just so much complexity to it that I just absolutely love. So I'll try to get a close-up of that if I remember, but yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and show you this bowl of yarn and talk about how I kind of met gauge. And I did knit a size 4XL because I wanted it to be super oversized, but I think that's, oh, I did make another modification. I did do a split side here instead of just, you know, keeping it in the round. And so on the ribbing, I basically worked back and forth. And the reason I did that was because I didn't think that at the time I had it in me to do an Italian bind off for near 300 stitches. I don't know if I was going to be able to do that, so I ended up putting a split and working them back and forth, and that was just so much more digestible, and I'm really happy I did that. I don't think I did the amount of decreases on the sleeve. And yeah, those are my only mods, but let me go ahead and get my laptop so I can tell you all the colors, and of course they'll be in the description below. Okay, I'm back, and I'm just gonna use my phone to do this. So for this yarn, this is the Fleece DK in the colorway Mourning Dove, and I held this double to, you know, meet the gauge that I was knitting at. And then, let me just stand this, I don't think that's safe. Okay, and then for the blue, this is the blue Sky Fibers Woolstok in Spring Ice, and I held it with 2 strands of the Isager Silk Mohair in the colorway 67, and that helped me meet gauge there. For this gorgeous red, I did the blue Sky Fibers Woolstok worsted and rusted roof, held with a strand of Isager Alpaca 2 in the colorway 21. And then for the pink, which I don't know how well that showed up on the screen, I did the blue Sky Fibers Woolstok worsted Quart crystal with a strand of Malabrigo Caprino in the colorway Valentina. So that is all the yarn that I chose for this project. I love it. I highly recommend it to other people. I think when I went to my community knit table at the local yarn store, the Craftivist, I was like knitting, we were all around the table, and I was working on this, and two of the other knitters were like, can you airdrop me the pattern? And I was like, absolutely. So yeah, that's what I did. I think also this pattern is written so you would start the collar first. You would do the ribbing for the collar and then start on the circular yoke. For some reason, I didn't want to do that because I wanted a folded down collar, and I didn't want to do the Judy's cast on. And so I ended up just starting kind of where you would with the color work basically, and then towards the end I picked up the stitches for the collar, and I'm really happy I did that. So yeah, and then I sent this to my family group chat, and my mom was like, oh, that's so cute, I wouldn't mind having that. And I love my mom, I'm obsessed with her, and I was like, you can have it, it's yours, because I can always knit another one. It did not take me long to knit because it's knit on US 10 needles. And so this worked up in literally less than 2 weeks for me, because I find color work so addictive, or really like any pattern. So it worked up so fast, and I got this done in 2 weeks. So I was like, if I ever want another one, which I probably will, it will just take me 2 weeks to whip one up. So yeah. Okay, I think we finally got through the finished objects. Woo! All right, the next thing are whips, and I don't have any acquisitions this time around. I'm also trying to be very yarn conscientious because, I don't know, I feel like I've made some bad yarn choices this year, and that I got indecisive and didn't even use some of the yarn that I purchased, aka this and this. But I am planning to do a really colorful Frankie sweater by Petite Knit for my sister-in-law, using this yarn and other yarn from my stash. So that kind of made me feel a little bit better that I have some semblance of an idea of what I'm gonna do with the yarn that I ended up not using. So okay, probably need to give this camera a break, and then we'll get into the whips, and I have 3 of them. So okay, we are on to whips. Let's see if we can get through these. I am going to start with the one that I'm probably furthest along on, so let me move these to the side. So in here I have my Lakes V-neck pullover. Wait, that's not a good way to show you. And I absolutely love this. So the Atlanta knitting girlies and I, so my like close knitting group and then a couple of other Atlanta knitting girlies, have decided to do a knit along for the Lakes pullover series, and some girls are doing the Lakes pullover with the crew neck, and then 2 of us are doing the V-neck. So I'm one of the 2 that's doing the V-neck because I did not have a V-neck sweater in my hand knit collection and have been dreaming of one. I wanted one in red, so eventually I will have to do that because, I don't know, it just looks so classic. But I did do a navy, which was on my Make 9. I wanted to do a navy sweater. I think originally I was talking about doing an Ingrid Dib pattern, but then someone they DM'd me and they were like, Camille, I don't want to burst your bubble, but they the front and back are like work separately, you have to sew them together. And I was like, thank you for telling me. This is the hard-hitting news and facts that I need. So I was like, oh, okay. So let's talk about the yarn. So the yarn is the Mode at Rowan Softest Alpaca in the colorway Midnight. I had originally purchased 4 balls of this with the intention to use it as a contrast color for the fray sweater. And the fray sweater, that plan is on hold for the foreseeable future. I cannot for the life of me choose the colorway that I want to do. And every time I think I have a colorway established, I start having doubts. And like I said, I went through a knitting identity crisis, so I don't want to knit something and then when I'm done with it, I'm like, I regret this color decision. So until I can lock down a colorway, that's on hold for a hot second. But I did have this already in stash, and so when the girls are like, let's do a Lakes knit along, I pulled it out, and then I purchased a couple more balls from Wool & Co. So this yarn is 70% alpaca, 7% wool, and 23% recycled nylon. It's 142 yards per ball, and in total I have 10 to do sweaters quantity. I think this has eaten up like 3 or 4. I'm on my 4th ball right now. Wait, that's not right. No, that's right. And yeah, so I am on body, continent, and I've already worked the V-neck collar because I feel like sometimes like your project looks kind of naked until the collar is done. So I did a gauge swatch. Unsurprisingly, it was tighter than what the pattern recommended or instructed for, and so I still used the US 9 needles, I believe. Yeah, these are 5.5 millimeters. I still use the recommended needle size, but I did knit a size medium instead. I think I was off by 2 stitches, but I really like Positive Ease. There's another creator, I think I've mentioned her before, Hannah Way, and she's just the queen of Positive Ease, and every time she whips a project out, I'm like, that's how oversized I want my things. So I did a size medium, and it looks a little scrunched right now, but when I put it on try-on barber cord, it is the perfect width, and it didn't really bloom that much. My gauge swatch didn't when I wet blocked it. So yes, I don't know how exactly it's gonna wear because it is alpaca, but I think it'll be fine, especially with the wool content and maybe some of the nylon. I think this is a perfect piece, and I'm really happy with this. So I'm on body continent. I think some of the girls are still working on the shoulder aspect of it right now, but I think we'll all catch up to each other relatively soon. And yes, I do have one of my friends that's in the knit along, and she has bound off the body, and I'm pretty sure she's getting the second sleeve done today. So I am quite envious, but it's been really fun seeing like all the different yarn choices we've made, because I don't think there's a single person that's using the suggested yarn. And fun fact about me, I have never ever used the suggested yarn that is listed in a pattern. Maybe I'll do it once this year. I should have like done like one of the bingo cards that people did and put that as one of them. Okay, the next thing that I have, ignore my Lafufu. My husband thought he brought a real Labubu for Valentine's Day. He gave me like a big box of things, but it's a Labubu, and honestly, it's really cute. I have a real one. She's somewhere roaming around here. Anyway, this little small project bag I like to use. So usually I'll have like one big garment that I'm working on, and then I'll have like a smaller project on the side as kind of like, you know, a palette cleanser if I need it. And it's usually like a stash busting project. So I had the Leading Men Sparkle Socks, or I'm sorry, Leading Men Fiber Arts Sparkle Sock in the colorway Poseidon in my stash, and with the intent that I would make socks. And I decided to do the Maine Coast Summer Socks by Summer Lee. So it's just this gorgeous, it almost looks like the same cabling pattern as like the tulip loop. I've never knit that, but it looks very similar to that. So I have gotten most of the shaft done. I'll probably start working on the heel flap and gusset pretty soon, just because I don't like really tall socks. They kind of overwhelm me. I'm really short, so I have really short legs, so they don't look very flattering on me if my socks are too tall. So I'm probably at a point where I could probably start working on the heel flap and gusset. But yeah, that's my mini project that I'm working on. And then my last whip is my mono boxy cardigan. So I told you that I'm trying to knit in more neutrals. I have a navy sweater going on right now. And now this is kind of like my oatmeal colored basic cardi. This doesn't look like anything. And I'm sorry, I'm like showing you something and you're like, what is that? It's a tangle of like fabrics. But I was on eBay, shocker, and you know, I'm always looking for like yarn lots and seeing if maybe there's a hidden gem on there and someone's selling something at super discounted price. And I came across this Berroco Ultra Alpaca 62189 barley. It was a listing for 4 hanks, and the price was essentially the price of what you would get for 2 hanks at full retail. So basically BOGO. And I decided to go ahead and purchase it and I hadn't seen the yarn before, so I didn't really know what it looked like in person. But on the label it said US 8, so I thought, oh, it's like a thicker yarn. And when it came in, I was like, oh no, this is more like light worsted, which is fine. But I had originally thought I was gonna make a neutral Dagmar. So as far as my cardigan collection goes, I have this bright green sweater, I have a bright pink Dagmar, which I love, and I have a pink stripe overload cardi, which I love, and then I have my scrap yarn striped sweater that I did in my month of destashing, again, which I love, but they're so colorful. So I was like, we gotta get something neutral in there, something where I can just wear it with anything. And I think it worked in my favor that it wasn't a thicker yarn than I anticipated, because I think this is the perfect weight of yarn for a cardigan that you just kind of throw in your purse when you're out and about in warmer weather, so that when you get to a super air conditioned place and you're a little chilly, this is the perfect like light sweater to throw on. So yeah, I've done the front. I'm working on the body now. Obviously haven't gotten very much done with it, but because it was a lighter gauge yarn than I was anticipating, the mono boxy kind of calls for that Aran weight, because the needle that you knit the cardigan with is typically a US 8 5mm, and I'm knitting this with a US 7 4.5mm to kind of compensate for the yarn weight. And when I did the gauge swatch, I was 5 stitches off. And you know, you think about it, like when you first hear that, you're like, oh, that's really not that much. But when I did the math, what I would have originally knit was like a size smaller medium, and that would not have fit me whatsoever. So to compensate for my gauge being extremely off, I did a size 4XL to basically get the same size, finished size dimensions of a size small cardigan. It's fine. And the reason I chose this cardigan is I was out knitting with a friend, and she kept wearing this like Nikki Chasen cardigan, which was like bulky weight. It's perfect. It has the same like shoulder detail as you see here. And so when I saw it, at first I thought, did you knit that? And then she's like, no, I bought it. And then I was looking at it, I was like, I swear I've seen that pattern before though. And then I did like, you know, a little deep search and then found out it's the mono boxy cardigan that I'd originally seen, and that's what sparked that memory. So I decided this is a sign for me to knit it, and I'm really happy that I did. I think there are a couple like other TikTok creators who are doing the mono boxy cardigan right now too, but I love the shoulder detail and I do like the pattern. It's very much a trust the process pattern and just do what the designer tells you, because actually the designer knows best in this scenario. So I was like, okay, I trust you with my life, and it's worked out because I've like, you know, I'm like, what are you asking me to do? But okay, I'll do it. And then when I get done doing it, I'm like, you're a genius, you know what you're doing. And so yeah, I'm just working back and forth until I reach the length that I do. I bought the eBay listing for 4, and then I just purchased 2 more hanks from Wool & Co. Hopefully there's not a significant like dye lot difference, but it's actually being delivered today, so it'll be nice to have that. And yes, okay, I think we made it. That's the end of the podcast. Again, I don't have any acquisitions because the acquisitions that I would have had if I filmed this earlier have already been cast on. And okay, in the comments, please let me know what's been your favorite knit of the year so far. I would love to hear what you guys are working on. I hope that you're all well. I know that there's some really disappointing, crazy things happening in our country right now, so know that I am sending you so much love, and yeah, I hope that knitting can be a safe space for you, or at least a place where you feel empowered and confident about the things that you're doing. So anyway, if you made it this far, thank you so much. I'm sorry that there was like so many disturbances, but I hope you bear with me. I hope it wasn't too awful, and hopefully I'll see you soon. I'm not really sure, but I'll try my best. And as always, I'm just so appreciative for all of you. Okay, happy making!